Good morning. Welcome to Between Two Flamingos. My name is Brian Reitnauer. I'm the student pastor at North Nixa Baptist Church, and
I'm Travis Edwards, the pastor here at North Nixa Baptist Church. Brian, I am enjoying the cooler temperatures.
it is a beautiful day. It was a beautiful day yesterday.
It really was for July, the end of July going into August.
So much better than 105
Yes.
heat index. So it's really nice.
See, and our family is without air conditioning right now, so
A perfect time.
perfect time for cooler temperatures.
Yeah. My family, in fact, is enjoying the cooler temperatures. This morning, they had some friends call and said, hey, let's go Silver Dollar City today. So my son will be doing a time traveler in my stead.
No,
So
that's not how it works. You
Okay.
have to go down there and ride time
Well,
traveler for yourself.
Someday. We have a fantastic guest this morning,
We do.
and we'll get to him in just a moment. But first, I have a trivia question for the day, which actually is it's a hint, it's a clue to who we're going to be having on the show today. And the trivia question is this. In what year did the Gilloy's Theater in downtown Springfield open? So that's a clue to our guest, but it's also the trivia question of the day. You know, I'm still a little bit down that no one has called in with these answers. I mean, they get a free gift if they have the correct answer.
Right. No one responded last week.
No.
So this week, you can Google it. We don't care if you cheat. We just want you to answer the trivia question. So the first one to respond in the comments will win a prize.
Exactly. And the prize to be determined.
Yeah. And it's not a flashing pink flamingo necklace.
Although I still have some.
So if you want one,
You can request.
You can request that.
Yes. But concerning last week's episode, I do want to thank you all, though, for watching and liking and sharing. Had nearly 1,200 views. In fact, the views are still going up. And if you live in the Nixa community and you have not seen the episode with the new superintendent, Dr. Loden, you need to watch. He is a really nice guy. I think he's going to be a fantastic addition to the Nixa school system and to this community as a whole.
I agree. I really enjoyed that interview, and he's a man of faith, and that came through in the interview, and so we're fortunate to have him here.
Right, and it's episode 14, if you want to go back and watch that. So it's last week's episode, which makes this episode...
Episode 15.
Exactly.
Whoa.
So, what we're going to do is, as we do most weeks, if we have some things to ponder.
And these are hard to come up with, right? I mean, you're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel.
I am, because a lot of the best sites have the exact same things to ponder. So, well, here's something you can do as well. If you have a thing to ponder you would like to hear on Between Two Flamingos, put that in your comments as well. We would love to have some creative new things to ponder. So, would you like to start, or would you like me to
I'll let
start?
you start.
Okay. You know that little indestructible black box on the airplanes? Why don't they make the whole plane out of the same material?
That's a good question.
I think it's a great question.
The black box always survives.
It does. And why don't they make the plane out of the same stuff? Be safer, it seems.
It seems
Don't know.
something to ponder.
It is
today.
something to ponder.
At lunch.
At lunch, on your coffee break, or while you're talking at the water cooler. I'm going to take a pause for a second, guys. Yes, ladies, can I help you?
It's gone now.
Okay. Thank you. Our tech crew in the back had something. Okay. Yes, you're up.
So, which letter is silent in the word scent? S-C-E-N-T. Is it the S or the C?
Now that is a great question. Because scent, C-E-N-T,
Is a word.
exactly, and then scent, S-E-N-T is a word, and then S-C-E-N-T
Is a word. So which letter is silent?
Don't know. It's a great question. Things to ponder. Number 3, replacing W with T in what where, and when gives you the answer to each of them.
That's very true.
So what, where, when becomes that, there, and then. The answer to each. Something to ponder.
I've never thought.
I hadn't either.
If you rip a hole in a net, there are actually fewer holes in it than there were before.
That's exactly true. I mean, a hole in a net is a problem. But there are fewer holes because you have enlarged the holes
in the net.
Exactly. If something goes without saying, why do people still say it? It's a great question.
It is a great question.
No.
Why do they call it a TV set when you only get one?
It'd be kind of cool if they sold those large screens in pairs and at the same price.
At the same price.
Right. A set.
We could use a set.
We could use a set. Number 7, why is it that when we skate on thin ice, we can get into hot water? Now, that is a great question. And it's true.
It is.
Same thing.
Right.
Thin ice, you're in hot water. It's a good question.
Another thing to ponder
It
in the
is.
water cooler today.
It is. I like this number 8.
You really have to think about this. Just before someone gets nervous, do they get cocoons in their stomach?
And I want you all to think about that one out there. Just before you get nervous.
Right.
I think it's a great question.
That is a great question.
Okay. Number 9. How is it that we put a man on the moon before we figured out it would be a good idea to put wheels on luggage?
I don't know.
Now that is a great question. I mean, can you imagine? Well, actually, I remember having to drag luggage around prior to wheels being added to luggage. But that was long after Neil Armstrong's up there walking on the moon. I don't know.
It comes in handy when you're going through an airport, being able to pull your luggage around.
You know, I've only flown commercial once. But yes, I mean, I can't imagine having to drag that through and then keep track of children, get your luggage to the right spot. Man, it's, yeah, I'm really...
You strap your children to the luggage and pull them through the airport.
Only if you got wheels.
Right.
You don't want to drag them. That'd be a problem.
No, security would be called.
They would be called.
Yeah.
I like this last one.
This is a good one.
I do like this last
Yeah.
one.
Why do people pay to go to the top of tall buildings and then put money in binoculars to look at things on the ground?
I mean, it's things that you get to see when you're on the ground anyway.
Right. But it's a different perspective, I guess.
It is a different perspective. But on the ground, it's free.
True.
And up top, you're paying money. Look at things that you were just beside.
Maybe that's something we could add. We could put like a viewing area on the top of our church building and get some extra coins. And
Hey, there's a way.
there you go.
We can do that.
What we could put some flamingos down on the ground for people to look at.
That would be awesome. And that would be a different perspective.
On flamingos.
I have a feeling people would pay to do that.
You think?
I really do believe there are some folks out there that would pay to do that. Okay, so we have a great guest today. And since you actually have met him, know him a little bit.
Oh, but you know his official title.
Let me see if I can do this. He is the executive director at the Gilloise Theater for the Performing Arts.
That is
Close.
close. So we'll get the
I
official.
don't have my notes in front of me.
We will get the official title in just a moment. But Geoff Steele is someone that I had the opportunity to meet, probably, I guess it was last year, on a radio show, and just really enjoyed getting to know him. He's a great man. You are going to enjoy this interview today for sure. So let's welcome Geoff Steele to Between Two Flamingos.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. How exciting.
Yeah, I'm
Between two flamingos,
Between Two Flamingos.
more flamingos than I ever knew I would be between.
That's probably true.
It is absolutely true.
I'm sure it is absolutely true. I mean, you've made it.
This is-
You have arrived.
I've arrived. It's the pinnacle. It's the pinnacle of my career. This is it.
You might want to put some flamingos out in front of the giveaways.
The truth is, when I started seeing this, I could not, it's like when you buy a car and you start seeing that car everywhere, there are flamingos all over the internet. You guys are on the front end of a trend.
I thought you were going to say it was like a car wreck and you couldn't look away.
That may be what it feels like while you're in the car, but from the outside, it's amazing. I've sent you links to t-shirts and socks and things. I'm like, where are these coming from?
Well, and we've been given lots of gifts, and people send us
I bet you
people send us pictures of Hobby Lobby. It's like, hey, they got a sale up there right now, and they got the flamingo display, and
It's amazing.
They had like a 5-foot flamingo at Hobby Lobby.
Oh, you had to have that, right?
I would have liked to have had it. I forget how much it was at original cost, but then they had it on clearance, and it was still, was it $30, $40? We probably should have gone and
A
purchased
5-foot
it.
flamingo?
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Do flamingos fly? Seriously, it's just a side question. Probably doesn't matter.
Do they fly?
Do flamingos fly?
short distances.
Okay.
And I can't remember exactly why they just stand on one leg. There is a reason for that.
They like to show off.
Well, that or the other leg is
Keep
tired.
sense
I'm
of
not sure.
balance.
I'm not sure which it is. But see, normally we have a backdrop.
Yes.
And the reason we have, by the way, you probably do notice that today we're in a different location. We're using microphones. I want to thank one of our viewers who commented on Sunday that she's having a hard time hearing. And so we thought, well, we don't want to have great guests come in and not being able to hear them. So we moved to a stage and we got mics. But normally we have a backdrop. It's got a flamingo on it.
Right.
And it says the Pat. And the Pat is like a community of flamingos. It's where they huddle up.
No kidding.
No kidding.
So you were
In the Pat.
In the Pat.
You were in the Pat.
Yes.
How's it feel?
It gives me pause. It gives me pause to be in the pat of the flamingos.
Pause to ponder. Instead of things
Instead of things to
ponder.
ponder, it's pause to
Pause
ponder.
to ponder. Yes.
Not P-A-W-S.
Yeah.
P-A-U-S-E.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, we are so glad that you decided
I'm thrilled to be
to
here.
come and be a part of the Pat
It's great.
today. Let's just kind of get to know Geoff the person, if you're okay with that. So
I'm happy to do
you grow up in the area.
I do.
Tell us a little bit about live kids. Anything you want to share on that end?
Yes. I did. I graduated from Glendale High School in Springfield and came up in the early days of contemporary Christian music, and so I sang and so on. I've got 3 beautiful children. I've got grandkids now that are amazing. I'm married to a lady named Joy Blue, who more people know her than know me. She's a 9th generation hillbilly from Christian County. Her father's Hosey Blue from Ridgecrest Baptist Church.
I recognize that name.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's also the Christian County commissioner now. So
Western
Western
Christian.
Christian, yeah, because the county's so large, we've got to split it. I don't know why. I don't know why they did that.
Now they were Christian on the west side then?
They are now. There. I don't know. But Joy spent about 18 years at the Ball and Hours Jamboree in Branson, Missouri. Her grandfather started that show in 1959 with his brothers. And I had gone and traveled and done some things in Nashville earlier in life. And then whenever I got her to marry me, the infamous story is that she would go out with me for quite some time. So I left the state in the morning and went to Nashville and toured for a couple of years. And then I came back and I wore her down and got her to go out with me. And once that happened, I came off the road. So I did a few shows in Branson doing marketing and so on. Did a little stint on the stage, but most of my time was spent in marketing. And then she retired, and then I did 11 years at Remington's. You know, Remington's was Missouri's largest nightclub. Operated in that capacity for 7 years, had 8 lawsuits, was closed. Ridgecrest Baptist Church bought that property, converted into what we call the community bridge facility. And so I was part of that conversion team, had the privilege to lead that mission for 11 years. And then they closed that, and now that building has been redeemed fully. It will be a church coming up this fall. We're very excited to see that property continuing to move ahead. But I moved to the Gilroy's Theater in 2000, I don't know, it's been 4 years. So, and Joy had retired from Branson by that time, and so she was trying to decide what she was going to do. And the executive board there was generous enough to say, why don't you guys do this together? Together, you make a whole person. And so we do it together. So she's my associate director and handles day-to-day operations inside the company. The joke is that I'm in the future. I live in the future, and so I'm booking things far out. Joy lives in the present. She deals with everything today. So if you ask me what's happening this weekend, I couldn't tell you. I'm working on January and February. And then we have another staff person that I love that we say lives in the past, present, and future.
So tell us what your title is.
Yeah, so the Gilloy's Theater is actually part of a larger thing called the Gilloy's Center for Arts and Entertainment. And so it's a nonprofit theater. The jewel is the theater itself. We actually have the property adjoining it as well. And that is, so there's a tenant there, Dublin's Pass is a restaurant that actually is a tenant to us. And then the second floor is a gallery space that's for weddings, receptions. It was something else prior to that, but we've acquired it and used it. And then the third floor was actually Ozarks Technical College Fine Arts Department for 10 years, but they experienced budget cuts and were able to move back onto the main campus to save money. And so I'm still deciding what we're going to do with the third floor, but we technically have that large building adjacent to it as well. So that's my title.
So if we ever decide to go on the road to do a show, could
Yes.
we use like the third
floor, you could. We've talked about making a black box theater up there. I don't think it's going to happen because the elevator is too small. But yeah, you're welcome to do a show on the third floor anytime you want.
Just on the third
Just
floor?
on the, yeah, I was clear about that, wasn't I?
It would be very close. Hey, we're at the Gilloys.
That would be pretty neat.
But because of the height, now I'm thinking maybe I put binoculars there and start charging.
More people, that's right, that's a good idea.
It's a great idea.
We're here to help.
Thank you. You're going to want a percentage, I'm sure.
No, we would just be happy to be able to do that. That would be
That's awesome.
That'd be pretty
That's
cool.
awesome.
So we're gonna go back to the past.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So you were in Nashville.
I was.
For a while.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. What was that experience like to be able to be in Nashville?
Nashville.
Center of music.
Nashville was awesome. For me personally, it was, in the famous quote is the best of times, the worst of times. I had been going through a divorce, and so I relocated as a result of that to get a job. But Nashville was remarkably good to me, and so I lived in a studio for a while, and then I went on tour. For a while, and then I came back and got a job with a record company. So I toured with Michael W. Smith, Christian artist,
Wow.
on the Change Your World tour in early '93. So that was great fun. Kind of living on a bus was tough. But
So what were you doing on the tour?
I was called a utility technician, so I was a set carpenter. So that show, at that time, that tour was the largest road tour that Christian music had ever done. It was all arenas, 14 to 18,000 seats, 5-truck show. So we had a 60-foot set that was 3 stories tall that I had to put up every day. So I had 8 hands, took us 8 hours to put it up, took us 3 hours to take it down every day.
Wow.
And we did that 5 shows a week, had 2 days off a week, and so you got to stay in a hotel 2 nights. The rest of the time you lived on a bus. And we did that for 60 cities. It was a great experience. Thrilled I did it. Thrilled I never did it again. But it's great to have off my bucket list.
So you got to know Michael W. Smith a little bit.
Yeah, actually, I got on the tour because I had met Michael locally in Springfield in 1985. He was doing a show here at the Shrine Mosque. And the promoter, he ended up having a layover, so the promoter had said, can you kind of take care of him, if he needs something, help him out. This is before the internet, this is before cell phones,
Right.
This is ancient history. We traveled with pigeons and stones.
That's right. We had phone booths.
We had phone booths. You had to go somewhere and put money into a phone to make a call. And so it was different whenever you were in a strange town. It wasn't as easy as Googling or Ubering or anything else. And so I had the privilege of taking care of him for a couple of days. I had just gotten married at that point. He was married. They were expecting their first child. I was expecting my first child. So it was just a click. Something clicked. I don't know why, but the Lord just allowed it to happen. I honestly thought I'd never see him again whenever he left. He took my phone number, and he called like 2 weeks later. And then we began, and so I went to his house in '85 and hung out for a week or so, and then went through it. So when I went through that divorce, he's the one that actually called my parents' house and said, what are you doing? I said, nothing. Everything's falling apart. And I honestly thought God was done with me. I really did. And he said, no, you need to come to Nashville. So I got on a bus and went to Nashville, and he picked me up at the bus station and put me up in the studio and let me drive one of his cars and helped me get a job the next day. He drove me around and took me to restaurants to get a job so I could start making money. And then I actually had to interview and audition. You know, even the artist doesn't just get to say who goes on the road. You go through a process. But I was blessed to be able to do that. So yeah, I know Michael fairly well. I don't talk to him as much anymore, but he is a good man. There's a reason he's had the career he's had.
Now, you know, he would probably sell out the Giveaways.
He would sell out the Giveaways.
That would be a great,
Don't-
like a worship time.
yes.
That would be awesome.
Don't think that it hasn't been talked about. And you never know, it could happen.
If he comes to Springfield, he needs to appear in between two Flamingos.
Can you work that out?
I'm not committing to any of that.
We'll do it on the
Would you come on the
third?
so he doesn't have to leave the theater? Well, just come on over. We're just going to set these Flamingos up. This is quite the road show, I got to tell you. This fits in the truck. This would fit in the
That's
truck.
right. So we could go on the road pretty easily.
You know, never mind. With zip ties, you can just strap those to your legs, and you can be walking between two
I've got them
Flamingos.
taped to the chair so that they don't fall over.
That's fantastic.
Because they can't stand on one leg.
No, they can't.
Oh, that's
I'm not sure where we found these. They're not living up to their reputation.
no, that's not good. That's not good.
At all. So now we'll come to present day.
Yes.
So, I mean, it has to be pretty exciting to be able to be a part of the historic Giveaways, and you mentioned that it's part of a kind of a larger corporation, but it's also a nonprofit, which a lot of people don't realize. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it became a nonprofit. So the theater, which are you going to answer the trivia question?
We're hoping somebody watching.
Oh, so that makes it. So I'll just say this. I can help them with this. I can tell you that Route 66 plays a crucial part in the theater's life because it was announced earlier that same year, and as a result, Giveaways, who was a businessman from Monet, Missouri,
My hometown.
your hometown, he desperately wanted to be on Route 66, which Park Central East, which is our address, is the original Route 66. The problem was all of that was already built. It was all developed. And so he did a 90-year lease with a laundromat that gave us that lobby. So if you have been to the Giveaways, then you see there's kind of a dog leg. You go through this really narrow, it's only 20 feet wide. The lobby is only 20 feet wide. And it runs about 90 feet long. And then you go through another set of doors because the theater technically resides on Olive Street. That was the closest that he could get that wasn't developed. So he built the theater back there, and then he cut that 90-foot swath through to Route 66 so that he could say he was on Route 66. And so we still live with that to this day. And so it's a fascinating piece. So the theater started as a transition house, so it was part vaudeville, part silent film, moved to talkies, and then as is the story with virtually every historic theater in America, the mid-70s, you started to see the demise of that as people started going to the malls, and that's where the multiplex cinemas were, and Springfield was no exception to that. The Battlefield Mall opened in the early 70s, and everything moved, and downtown shuttered. And so the theater was empty for 26 years, and then some people that I call heroes in Springfield actually realized this is a beautiful theater, we really ought to save this thing. And so they started working on it. To do that, though, they had to turn it into a nonprofit. So the theater is a 501c3 nonprofit. Our primary mission is to preserve that space. That's what the original mission was. But they were able to do that over a 12-year period of time, and obviously it's reopened. It's been open now for 12 years, 11 years, 12 years in October. And so now our mission has kind of changed. We still are primarily focused on the preservation because it costs a lot to maintain a 92-year-old building. But it also, our mission is to enhance the quality of life for people in the Ozarks, visitors and residents alike, through arts, education, and entertainment. So in some of those areas, we're hitting on all cylinders. In other areas, we haven't just scratched the surface and we're just getting there. But it's a long process.
Before beginning, you were talking about at least a couple of events that are free, that you invite the entire family to come in. Tell us about those things.
Sure. We started last year showing It's a Wonderful Life to create a new Christmas tradition to encourage families to come down. And it's a gift back to the community. So there's no charge for admission to come to It's a Wonderful Life. And you can see the Jimmy Stewart film. I love it, partially because I love Jimmy Stewart, and I think the film's awesome. But I particularly love seeing it in that environment. And so one of the things we say around the theater is it's not just who or what you see, it's where you see it. The theater truly, in those environments, the theater becomes part of the show experience. And so we love that. So we see grandparents and their children, grown children and grandchildren all coming together to the theater to experience this Christmas tradition, and we're really excited. So we'll do that again this year. We've also added some things, like there will be a Santa Claus this year, so families that want to come down and get their pictures made with Santa Claus, and there's no charge for that. Again, it's just a community gift. I feel like a lot of times economics are tough on the holidays, and so anything that we can do to be able to give back rather than spending 40 or 50 bucks on a picture with Santa Claus, let's just come down to the theater, see it in this historic setting and do it. We also just added this year, and we're going to make it an annual tradition because it was received marvelously, and that's the Wizard of Oz, and we do that in the spring. I don't remember whether we're going to do it in March or April next year. I want to say it's March, but we'll show that. And those are on Sunday afternoons. We show those at 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoons, 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoons. Doors open at 2. The idea, honestly, when I did that was I thought, wouldn't it be great if church groups and families said, let's go to church, let's go eat lunch together, and then let's all go down and have this group experience, this communal experience of seeing that entertainment, and still be home. If your church has evening services, then you have plenty of time to still get back to evening service, but many churches don't do evening services now, and they can go on their way and they'll still be home a little before dark. And so that was kind of my intent behind that originally. Hasn't happened to that extent that I was hoping for, but I think that we'll get there. It's well attended now.
So, I mean, growing up, Wizard of Oz, that was an annual tradition. You know, every year they would show that on TV, and that was a highlight. You know, they were able to sit down. You didn't have the VCR, you didn't have any way to record it. I mean, you truly had to sit down as a family and watch it. And so I think it's great that you're kind of bringing back some of those traditions. You know, like people of my generation, we remember that, and we're able to then introduce our children. You know, and it can become a tradition once again for our family. So that's really cool that you're doing that.
We love it. That's my favorite movie.
Well, I think The Wizard of Oz is another perfect film to show in the Gilroys because of the era it was also produced in.
That's right.
Another perfect, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a beautiful space, and it's just something happens. You know, there's something about spaces that they become something, and when you use a space consistently for the purpose of making memories, which is that's my job, is to make memories.
Right.
And so when we get to do that, there's something about that gets into the walls and makes it fun.
Well, from what you've talked about, I assume that Michael W. Smith is probably one of your favorite artists that you've had the opportunity, the privilege to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that you've also had an opportunity to work with some pretty big name people through the Gilroys.
Sure.
So who would be some of those folks that you really, really enjoyed working with?
Wow. There's a lot. We've been really fortunate. We've had a lot of great people. Favorite people like to deal with? I mean, some of the shows are exceptional, but an interesting guy that a lot of people, I mean, hopefully a lot of people know who he is. His name is Bela Fleck. Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. Do you know Bela Fleck? He's got 8 Grammys, and he's got Grammys in more different categories than any other artist, to my knowledge. And it's like in 6 different categories. But Bela Fleck he's a jazz banjo player. That's what he is. He's a jazz banjo player. He's played in town several times, but he got to play at the Gilroys for the first time 2 years ago, I haven't announced this officially yet. I'll do it here.
Breaking news!
I will tell you, Bela Fleck is coming back to the Gilroys in 2019 with his wife Abigail Washburn, who's amazing in her own right. But they were amazing. They are the only artists in my life, in my 33-year career, that did their own dishes after the show. They
Wow.
were downstairs and Joy came around the corner to just check on them, and they were doing their own dishes. And she was like, "No, you don't have to do that." And Bailey said, "No, we clean up after ourselves." And so they did their own dishes. To have 8 Grammys and be coming into a historic theater, and he's down at the sink after doing a sold-out show and doing his own dishes is pretty exceptional human being.
It says a lot.
Pretty exceptional human being. So I love Bela Fleck a lot. But there's a lot of them. Brandy Carlisle is a great artist that I've enjoyed. Tommy Emmanuel, guitarist, exceptional. So there's some great ones out there.
So you had some comedians come in as well.
Yes.
Any favorite comedians?
Consistently, Tim Hawkins. Tim Hawkins is really exceptional because, a lot of times you'll hear this idea that Christian entertainment is subpar, and that kind of changed in some ways. I got to work with DC Talk for a while in the old days, and DC Talk was one of those first groups that you saw people saying, "Man, they're as good as a secular band." As a matter of fact, the truth is DC Talk probably influenced secular music in some ways. If you go back and listen to that and listen to music that came out about 2 years after Free at Last on the secular side, I think probably Toby had probably influenced the secular market, which doesn't happen very often. Tim Hawkins is kind of like that. Tim Hawkins is one of those guys that can go toe-to-toe with the very best secular comedians, and I think his stuff stands up consistently. And so I like him a lot.
Love Tim Hawkins.
Yes.
I've seen him live once, not at the Gilloys. I've seen him live it was actually a youth event we went to several years ago over in Carthage.
Yes.
And man, he was awesome. He's fun.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
He's amazing. Yeah, he is coming back to the Gilloys. I think he's sold out already, but he was there once before, and we did shows at Remington's with him a couple times. So this is my 4th or 5th time to have him in my life, and and his whole organization is great. His brother books him. His brother-in-law actually is his road manager. I mean, it's a family affair. It's really cool.
And a Missouri native.
That's right.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Great guy. So anything that you want to highlight? I did want to mention, though, before we get to that, you mentioned that C.S. Lewis, and that people watching that are Christians, they might be interested in the show that's coming up.
Sure. Yeah, anybody may be interested in that show because C.S. Lewis, one of those profound authors in 20th century literature, and certainly from the inspirational side, he wrote Chronicles of Narnia. But he also, and most people know this, but he had a great relationship with J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings. And Tolkien is actually the one that led C.S. Lewis to the Lord. And they had a strong, often tumultuous relationship. I mean, they were both creative forces, and so it wasn't always rainbows and holding hands on that deal. But they had a great relationship, and so we have a 2-man play coming back. We did an evening with C.S. Lewis last year, and it went marvelously well. So we're doing another show, and it's C.S. Lewis with Tolkien, and it's currently in New York. It's playing in New York, just off Broadway. And they're going to bring that show. It's 2 British actors, same British actor that did the C.S. Lewis show before, David Payne, with, and the name of the guy that plays Tolkien escapes me. But those guys will be with us November 17th. As a matter of fact, if you want, whoever gets the trivia question right, I will give you 2 tickets to Lewis and Tolkien.
Wow. That's awesome.
It's November 17th. It's a Saturday night. But it's a Saturday night at the Gilloys Theater, the historic Gilloys Theater, with a Broadway show, and that's worth some quan. That's worth some money.
That is very cool.
Very cool. Thank you.
You're
Of course.
on your phones. We can
That's
push the
your promise.
comment.
Right. That's the direct to hell.
You're sitting down there.
Yeah, you guys don't count. I'll give you guys tickets too. You guys can come too.
Wow.
But you guys don't have to. I mean, you can sign on just to make the thread blow up a little bit. But you guys can come as well.
That is very
Very
cool.
cool. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course. I think it's going to be very exciting. It's Saturday, November 17th. I'm jacked up about doing that type of programming.
What's the first one with the C.S. Lewis, just individual? Was that well received?
It was really well received. We did that one on a Sunday afternoon as well. But it was a fairly short term, and it exceeded my expectations for what it would do, because we just normally don't do plays. We don't do narrative work very often. Comedy's really well received here. But the key for this programming is always you've got to support it. You know, I can't do it if nobody shows up. And so I was thrilled when they came out for that show. And I actually booked it that night. I said, I want you back because I think we can do something really special with this. And I think we can. So we moved it to Saturday night to make it a little more social and make an opportunity happen for groups to be able to come out.
Very cool. So anything coming up soon that you want to highlight before we kind of bring things to a close?
August, I can tell you Friday, August 10th, another free opportunity. We're going to be showing the Pixar film Cars in the theater for families. So if you want to go see Cars for no charge on a big screen in a historic setting, we'll be doing that on Friday night, August 10th. And you can see all of that at gilloys.org, GILLIOZ.org. There's all kinds of things that are happening that, again, it escapes me, but I do remember Cars being on August 10th, and it's a great family show. It's a great family fun.
One of our favorites.
Awesome.
Well, it has been an honor to have you
Thanks
with
for
us
having us.
today.
No honor.
And know that you are welcome anytime on Between Two Flamingos. You know, we're all about making memories too.
I know you are, and I will testify. I have watched this podcast. Whenever I saw you at the restaurant a month ago or so, I said, man, I've watched this show.
Well, we appreciate it.
He said, really? I said, yeah, man.
He didn't say how long you watched it, but you watched it, right?
No, I've watched several of them.
Cool.
They're funny. I brought Joy in to watch them. Look what Travis is doing. It's funny.
Well, that's great.
That is great.
So whenever I see the views, it's not just my mom sitting at home over and over again.
I'm not going to speak to your mother's activity.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That could be happening.
It could be happening.
I know my mom and dad watched, so.
I promise you, my mom was my biggest fan. It cracks me
Yeah,
up.
mine too.
Good for you.
Well, thank you again for coming in.
My pleasure.
And be sure to share this video, to like this video. I know there are a lot of folks that will find this very interesting.
Awesome.
About the giveaways. Very cool.
And answer the trivia question.
2 free tickets.
To lose a token.
Worth some change.
That's right.
Okay. So, thank you again for watching, and tune in again next week to Between Two Flamingos.